God for church, and thank God for each one of you. I want to thank you ahead of time. The reason I'm doing these broadcasts still, even though we are meeting as a church, is because so much seems to be happening every week. And I keep thinking, well, this will probably be the last week we'll do this. We don't need to do this anymore. And then, of course, more things happen. It's absolutely unbelievable to me. Last time that we talked a little bit, we were talking about witchcraft. In Galatians chapter 3, it said that you foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? So even in that day, there was something going on trying to turn the early church away from what they really confessed that they believed in. And what I believe, of course, they did believe in. But there has always been this alternate voice. So we said if you study the word bewitched in Galatians chapter 3, you'll find out that it's manipulation and or intimidation with the purpose of domination. And of course, guess what? I would present to you that that is something that you and I are dealing with now on a daily basis. So I think we've got to learn how to deal with that and how do we address those things. We had a couple of interesting questions that I'm going to kind of link together if I can. From last time, do you think George Floyd protests were planned intentionally to distract from the hearings that were going on dealing with Obama administration corruption? I'll come back to that one in a minute. If you do you think that total anarchy is trying to take over America was part of that same plan originally, or was it those that want America as we know it destroyed, seeing and taking protests as an opportunity? That's number two. We'll come back to that also in just a minute. And the third part of the question, or the third question was, depending upon the answer, what do you think the extent is or the effect that it will have on us or our church alive and living today in this society? So, before I directly answer that, let's review where we were. We entered 2020 just having finished up 3.5 years of a Russian investigation that quite clearly now, I hope everyone understands and realizes, was a hoax. It was perpetrated by people who had a different interest than we did and a different agenda than we did. By we, I mean the average American. Because most of us are going day to day, we're trying to live our lives, we're trying to be happy. We've got families, we've got responsibilities, we've got things we want to do. Anyway, so we started off with that, and then we had the impeachment, which also turned out, when all was said and done, it ultimately came down to, as they presented the articles of impeachment from the floor of the House of Representatives, where it's the proper place for that to begin, they present that to the Senate. This is how our system works. And then the Senate, depending upon how they view it, will either have a hearing on it, have a session on it, bring it into open discussion, and make a ruling. And in effect, while they're not a court, they're acting like a court as they take advantage of that proceeding, the legislative overlooking the executive as a balance. So when the impeachment came to the Senate, they found out, and at least they believed, and they presented it to us, although not very clearly. I think most of us just heard that kind of, well, they said there was nothing to it, and there was nothing to it except that we don't like Donald Trump. And he doesn't believe like we believe, and because he doesn't believe like we believe, he needs to go. That's an important thing to keep in mind.
Right.
So when the Senate said that, then we were probably momentarily off balance. I mean, we as Americans, the average American, not people with agendas that are manipulating and intimidating with the purpose of dominating. Then came COVID-19. Wow, that was a trip. And you have to separate COVID-19 from, actually the next thing that came wasn't COVID-19, I'm sorry. The next thing that came was an investigation into all the false allegations that came out over the last 3.5 years, and they started looking at that very closely, and that included General Flynn and others, and then it got deeper than that, and then there's the Durham investigation, and then there's things like this that you and I, the average Christian, is just tired of even hearing about. We just like to know, is somebody going to do something? Will this ever get settled? Or am I just being frustrated again by my own government? So that's important to remember that, because that's part of a strategy. I am going to answer those questions. After the investigation came COVID-19, which, by the way, is a real virus. I have downplayed it from the very beginning, but I have downplayed it from the very beginning based on what the science ultimately did reveal. We had other sources, military, political, and otherwise, other countries that got us information that I happen to have access to that a lot of people don't have access to. So I went online and I tried to keep everybody up to speed, and I tried to tell everybody, you know, this will pass. I said this back in probably March, that this was a genetically engineered virus. In other words, somebody, if you want to use the term weaponized or altered or however you want to do it, my point is it was a serious, real virus, something we should be concerned about. The next thing that hit us was the lockdown, which, as it turns out, if we follow the science, we did not need to do, because there apparently now is statistical evidence that those that locked down and those that did not virtually had no difference in the outcome, except if you locked down like we did, then your economy got destroyed. So that's another important thing to remember. What if that really was not necessary? You say, well, are you saying that everything that they did related to COVID-19 was unnecessary, or are you calling everything they did witchcraft? No, I'm not. I'm saying there was a real virus. There is a real virus. The virus is still active. It's lingered longer than most viruses, simply because that tells me that it was genetically engineered. However, remember what the target group was. The vast majority of deaths were actually 80 and over, 80 and older, or if there were, and there was a 45-year-old man. It's funny because you kind of heard of every person. There was one teenager. There was a 45-year-old man. There was probably a couple of others that were around that. They reported every one of those like it was just massive, and it was spreading across the whole country, and that wasn't true. That was misrepresentation, and in my opinion, that was manipulation and intimidation with another goal altogether in mind, the goal being locking you down and killing our economy. So, having said that, then what happened? Well, as soon as we started getting out of the COVID-19 fear, a lot of people started beating the fear. We started talking about opening up. We're going to get free, and all normal Americans are going, oh my God, some semblance of normal. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Mm-hmm. And then came radical racism. It was not George Floyd, but George Floyd's death, his killing at the hands of a police officer, which everybody, red and yellow, black and white, all precious in his sight, agreed, was exactly what everybody saw on that video. And we still have to go through the process of a trial and all of that, because in America you're innocent until you're proven guilty. But my point is that an extreme majority, like I've never seen in this whole country, were in agreement on that. Mm-hmm. Left, right, nobody was questioning anything. Mm-hmm. And then that got hijacked, that death got wasted, in my humble opinion. And somebody took it and blew it all out of proportion and made it sound like a reason why they were enraged. And they had to burn Minneapolis and New York and Chicago and Los Angeles and New Orleans and so on around the country. Meanwhile, you and I, the average guy or woman with a family that were not in those downtown areas where there was looting and burning and killing, because remember that in the course of all of that, we had like 80 or 90 police officers that were severely injured, several killed. We had hundreds of people that were injured in the rioting, oftentimes resisting, or innocent bystanders that were assaulted by violent anarchist criminals. So what turned out to be something that could have really brought our country together was hijacked and turned into racism. And all of us were told by a small group of people, it's your fault. It's your fault because you're white. Now, let me pause again. That gets us to, do you think all of this was planned? Absolutely. I do not think there is one doubt in the entire world about that. And I do not believe for a moment that all of the riots, including the later emphasis on destroying statues, notice that it went through rioting. Then when the president said the rioting is going to end, pretty much it ended. And then there were some peaceful rallies, some of which did get out of hand, and some of them where there was damage done. And again, most of us are standing there going, is anybody ever going to pay for this? Does nobody ever get arrested anymore? I think most of us, average America, were absolutely stunned to find that in major cities where for years we had been told we would be safe. It's safe to walk in New York. It's safe to walk in Chicago. It's safe to walk in LA. We're shocked to find out that no, one word from a mayor, because we're a republic, that means the federal government cannot immediately step in and be the police force even for the country. the first line of defense is that local city, town, village, hamlet. Their responsibility is to step in. But they can't step in because the police chief is totally responsible to the mayor. And if the mayor says stand back, and the mayor says don't use any weapons, and the mayor says no tear gas, that's an ouchie, that's a no-no. That'll irritate people. Don't use pepper spray, it'll just make them angrier. You couldn't make them angrier. They were already angry. And you were just being like the parent that refused to say no to their child when they're having a hissy fit. And so we watched our cities burn and all the rest of that. And meanwhile, you and I are wondering, what in the world? Well, thank God, at least it can't get any worse than this. And it looks like the burning's dying down, and now they're pulling down statues. What is going on? Are there no police departments anywhere in the whole country? And now they've got autonomous zones. And, well, there's actually, technically there's only one right now. The one in Seattle, because they tried to do the one in Washington, but that didn't turn out very well. Just like they tried to tear down, they did tear down statues, but finally the president did what he said he would do. See, he can make an executive order, he can write a rule, and as a last resort, if the mayor refuses to enforce the law of the land of our Constitution, then he can enforce the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And he did. And he brought in the National Guard. And a lot of you are going, well, why didn't he do that like 2 weeks earlier? Well, because he's getting crucified every day for what he does do. And right now there's a great battle because the whole leftist organization, including the Democratic Party, are basically, well, you got to let them tear down a couple of hundred statues, and if they want to rewrite some of the past and, you know, change our history, and you got to kind of understand it's a complex question. No, it's not, stupid. Simple. The average American that loves God and country is out there going, are you out of your minds? Right. This is not complex. This is the height of simplicity. Yeah. You wouldn't let your kids burn down your living room and call it free expression. And they didn't learn it in your living room anyway, and they didn't even learn it from you. They learned it at the real expensive college you sent them to. Mm-hmm. So, is this all planned? In my opinion, yes. Well, how can you say that? You must be getting very extreme, Pastor. No, I'm not. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I don't think so. Does anybody other than me remember hearing somebody say, we have been in slavery for 400 years, and you did it? Well, number one, we have very few 400-year-olds. So I don't think that's true. Number two, I thought, wow, these people are terrible at math. We're only 250 years old. How could we have enslaved people for 400 years? False accused. And then I found out about the 1619 Project that is taught throughout the Chicago public school system in 35 states on college campuses across the country, where they already, without your permission, you never voted, changed your history. You probably are so dumb you thought Christopher Columbus found America. Well, He thought he found something, and he did find something. And I don't think it's wrong to give him some credit for it. He got close, you know. But that didn't even, that wasn't when we got founded. We got founded in 1776. Hello. I don't think we ought to be accountable for anything before that. If you want to go back beyond 1776, talk to the British. So, but 1619 teaches new history. Not the one you and I grew up knowing. It teaches about the first Spanish people to come to the Americas that had slaves. Where'd they get those? Oh, that's right. They got it from the black slave owners in Africa that exported them all over Europe and all over the Americas, north and south. You do know we have. See, I'm so old, we used to teach world history. My wife talked about this. World history, then we used to teach Latin American history. Then we used to teach American history. And then we used to teach religious freedom history, I call it, where you study the Declaration of Independence and the various amendments and why they were amended and all of that. And that was good. That's the history I remember. Hallelujah. I liked it. But that's not what you're hearing today. No. It started in 1619 slavery, and there's nothing you can do about it. And if you're white, you're a bigot. And if you're white, you're a hater. I'll tell you what. Anybody that says that to me, I'll tell them, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, I beg to differ with you. You're the bigot, and you're the racist. And you are the hater, my friend. And you're the hater, my friend. Yeah. Hold on. There we go. I think we got it. Sorry about that. Little minor interruption. And so, I'm sorry. I'm not a racist. I love everybody. Don't judge me. You don't even know me. You're judging me because of the color of my skin? How dare you do that? I don't care what you are or who you are. You're wrong. Because you know nothing about me. You know nothing about my life. You know nothing about my history. You know nothing about, what I have done or not done. You know nothing about the people I've ministered to or not ministered to. I've got a news flash for you. We're heavily involved in Africa. Have been for years. Our first mission outreach was India. Let me see now. Wait a minute. They are not white. But we didn't notice that because we thought they were people. And so we have got to refuse being manipulated and intimidated with the purpose of dominating us. Because a second part of that question was, how do you think this is going to affect us today? Do you think that they will try to lock us down again? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Do you mean because of this secondary spike that's happened? No, I don't. I don't believe that you're going to be able to get away with that. I know one thing. I've already decided for me in my house. I'm going to serve the Lord. You're not locking us down again. It's a violation of my constitutional rights. You stole them from me with a lie one time. You will not steal them from me again. And then call the rioters freedom fighters and zealots and patriots when they're destroying everything that I believe in and stand for. So, I guess that's a long answer to a pretty short question. But at least I think you can tell what I feel about that. I mean, I think all of this is connected. It's all connected. I mean, come on. Even little things, that judge in New York. Listen, if your boss fires you, by the way, he was not voted on. He should have been. I'm talking about Berman in New York. He should have been voted on in the position he was in, and he should have been vetted. In other words, there should have been an investigation into his past to make sure that he was a judge that would rule according to the Constitution, because that's what they're supposed to do. But he does not do that. Judge Sullivan does not do that. They rule according to whatever they feel is right. And they're wrong. And that's two judges that when they got fired didn't know it and wouldn't accept it. And that's wrong. See, we're in a country right now that's fighting to survive. My prayer is that this 4th of July picnic, which we are going to have, will not be our last. Do you think it's going to be our last, Pastor? No, I don't think that. I'm an optimist. And besides, I read the book. And you know what? God's in charge. And I'm not going to give up my confession because some people are being extremely stupid. I'm going to hold to what God said. I'm going to cling to that. I'm going to say, my God is in charge. The earth is the Lord's and all it contains. In Hebrews 11 it says this, let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds. We ought to be encouraging and stimulating one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking our own assembling together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. I say let the church be the church. Now, what about the spikes? I'm sorry if I'm taking too long tonight, but what about the spikes? I have talked with people in Florida. I've talked to people in Texas that are actually there. The steps in both places were to slow down continuing to open up. We're 75% open. And in every area. In Texas, they cut that back. And in one city in Florida, because of home rule and everything, they cut that back one step to say, we're closing the bars. Well, why was that? Well, because they are seeing a great increase in the number of people that are testing positive for COVID-19, part of which is because we've done 27 million tests. 27 million tests. So we're getting a lot of tests, and they're getting a lot of positives. But most of those are not sick. In other words, there's been a slight increase in ICU usage, but that's not necessarily COVID patients. They're starting to do more surgeries. As they do surgeries, when you come out of surgery, no matter what kind it was, you generally go to ICU for a brief period anyway, and then you go to a regular room, and that's just sort of the process. So some of that is that. And they're not telling you what those statistics are. I'll give you another one. 122,000 Americans have died of COVID-19, according to them, since the beginning to the end. Let's call the beginning March, and let's say that's till now. Does anybody know how many people normally die in that same period of time, on average, every year for the last 10 years? Because you ought to, if you're going to be fair, you ought to just separate that number right out of that COVID-19 death. And I think we'd find that, A, we haven't had that many. Now, where it has struck is exactly where it was targeted by the people that genetically altered the COVID virus and then released it, trying to kill older people and those with comorbidities of obesity, high blood pressure, kidney, liver, lung failure, and they're already on oxygen and they're already limited in how they can move around. Those are susceptible. And they're using that as a great excuse, honestly, in some states. God help them. May God Almighty forgive them. And may everybody else take them to court. Because I lost a sister-in-law in a nursing home in Long Island. New York, Governor Cuomo. Don't even talk to me about it. Don't tell me. They didn't know them personally, but they're responsible for their deaths. Florida protected the vulnerable. Less than 1/10 of the deaths. Unbelievable. Crazy numbers. And, that's what we should have done. See, I don't deny that there really is this, and it's not a normal virus, and it is dangerous. But I will tell you this, it is not dangerous to you if you're under 65, 70, 75 years of age and healthy. Mm-hmm. If you are, you may get sick a few days. If you're 75, you might get a fever, you might cough, you might have some problems. You probably don't need, did anybody remember March, April, and May when they said, if you think you've got it, stay home? Because it's not the people it's gonna kill are the ones it was targeted to kill. Man, I can't be the only one that's frustrated about that. No, listen, God is trying to help us, but we've got to wake up. We are in a battle for America like we have never been. You better get a hold of your school system and object if they're teaching that 1619 curriculum. And if you don't know what it is, then get the Marxist-Leninist handbook and read it, or get the 1619 handbook and ask them to send it to you. You're a taxpayer. And then you'll object. Actually, you'll probably more than object. You'd go crazy if you knew what they were teaching your kids in school. Yep. I can tell you what they're teaching them in school. Rebel, be angry, demand, tell them what you want. And if they don't give it to you, burn it down. Wow. Nobody would say that. Oh, that's right, that was on the news the other night. Listen, folks, we got to wake up. It's time. It's actually past time. I'm a little frustrated, I guess, because I never seem to get to my real point. Because there's so much on my heart, to be honest with you. My heart hurts for this country. I hurt for the people that are out of work.
Yes.
I mean, I'm seeing stores all around me that are never going to open again. They're never going to open again. That they were chains even, but they weren't the big giant things. And they stripped the names off of them, and they're vacant. And now that'll be a good opportunity for some entrepreneur, but it won't happen in the next 6 months. They're gone. Their livelihood is gone. Those employees are out of work. When August comes, and I hope there's not another free ride, they're going to have to find a job and get up and do something.
Yeah.
Might start looking now. Romans chapter 10 says that if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you can be saved.
Amen.
Well, I know that, Pastor. I've heard that. No. You can be saved from everything I've been talking about. Seriously. That's the amazing thing to me. God is the one. Are you crying out every day? Lord, I don't know what to do about this COVID-19 thing. I don't want to get afraid again. Well, then why don't you reject the spirit of fear? Why don't you get out again? Why don't you get unfrozen? Why don't you believe that he saved you? You know, I know a lot of people around here. I talk to a lot of people. I don't know anybody. I don't know any. Does this sound unbelievable to anybody but me? I don't know anybody that I know. I know of them, but I don't know anybody that got sick. And the few people that did get sick going all the way back to January, and they might have got this in January, February, before the announcement, before China stopped lying and Wuhan became a factor. They got well. How? Well, the few that I know confessed that they would be healed.
Wait a minute.
See, that's saved. Then you got saved. I mean, it means you can get saved from hell, but come on, you want more than to get saved from hell. You want to get saved from fear.
Yeah.
You want to get saved from manipulation and intimidation and domination. You want to get saved from your own ignorance about what's going on in our school system and in our own government. We have two parties right now, but they're not just two parties. The Republicans are still fighting between conservative and moderate, which would be old school Democratic, which means they'll still talk and debate because the new Democrats won't do any of that. The new Democrats don't even want to hear what you have to say if you're a Republican. And God help you if you support Trump. They'll hate you, your family, and everybody you ever knew. That is not the America that so many died for.
Right.
We were saved for something better.
Yes.
We were saved to something better. And we can make this something better. And I'm believing it. I'm crying out to Almighty God, Lord, The earth is the Lord's
Yes.
and all it contains. Lord, help us.
Yes, yes.
God, we need a deliverance. We need to be delivered from our own laziness. This has been going on for 50 years. They've been twisting our college campuses. I'm sick and tired of these Marxist, Leninist, communist
Yes.
teachers inculcating kids that went to college. They're kids. Those are kids. They're going there trying to learn, how am I going to cope with life? What am I going to do? And they're being told, just tear it down and destroy it. And we, the brilliant teachers, will show you how to build a better society. But we need you to tear it down. Listen. Yeah, but my senator believes that. Well, he's a leftist. If he believes any of that, if he can't tell the difference, is there anybody listening to the sound of my voice that doesn't know the difference between a peaceful protester and a destructive rioter? By the way, getting back to the COVID spike, I also talked to people in Arizona. Same thing every place. Arizona was spiking. I checked. In the whole state of Arizona on that day that it was reported, there had been one death. One. Deaths are down in Texas. Deaths are down in Florida. There is a virus. Do you know the best way to fight a virus? Not to lock down. Social distancing. You know, you shouldn't maybe go up and hug every stranger, lick them, spit on them. Unless you're a rioter, then I guess it's okay. But that's what we're told. Rioting is good. Church is bad. No. Let me help you. If you're that stupid, let me straighten it out. Church is good. Rioting is bad. Social distancing is it. What about masks? Man. Manipulation. Intimidation with the purpose of domination. Do not tell me you like wearing your mask unless you're burning something. I haven't talked to one person that thinks it's healthy or comfortable.
Right.
Okay then. With the heart, a person believes. In other words, you can't half believe. How can you get saved half believing? How can you get saved going, well, I'm not sure what I believe? I mean, saved from what? If you don't even know what you believe, I know in whom I have believed, and I am certain that he is able to keep that which I have committed to him. That's my life. That I have committed to him. That's my whole life. That I gave to him, and he'll keep it until that day. I just worry about America. I love our country. I have been everywhere in the world. There's no place like it. I love all the other people. I have friends all over the planet. That's where I was telling somebody the other day. I don't want. I was talking to Yesu from India. About what's going on in India. Yes, they're still locked down. Yes, he's feeding people. If he didn't feed people, they'd starve to death. They're feeding thousands of people a day. I mean, every day, for months. And there's no government subsidy, and nobody's getting a check.
Yeah.
And it's hot in India right now. See, we have friends all over. It's nothing new. You can be saved. But you can't let your heart, you gotta believe with your heart. You gotta actually believe it. In the name of Jesus.
Hey, Pastor's on
So-
the podcast right now.
That if you confess with your mouth
Okay, bye.
and believe in your heart that Jesus is Lord and that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Your mouth, you confess, resulting in salvation. So, apparently you can get saved, but then you have to go talk about what just happened for you to really have assurance of your salvation. Wonder how many people haven't done that yet. Because you're timid. God has not given you a spirit of timidity, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Can I read on? For the scripture says, whoever believes in him will not be disappointed. Wow, that's awesome. I'm holding on to that. I'm clinging to that. Can I read you another verse or two? There is no distinction between Jew and Greek. The same Lord is Lord of all, black and yellow, red or white. They are precious in his sight. Come on, guys. We buried this race thing years ago. Don't dig it up. Don't desecrate the grave, whether it's newly George Floyd or whatever. And don't get confused. The police are not your enemy. You do have an enemy, but it's probably a communist, leftist politician, newsman, teacher that's indoctrinating your kids behind your back. You haven't noticed the little rebellion? Come on. Here's the good news, and I'll close with this. For whoever will call on the name of the Lord will be saved. Nothing about race, color, creed, because there is none. God absolutely doesn't see it that way. Neither should you. Well, God bless you. I'm excited about tomorrow. I feel better. I just got that off my chest. That was like harking up a hairball.